Where are we?
We are in Studio City, more or less. I mean, I guess this could be considered the Hollywood Hills, actually, more than Studio City. I'm a little unclear.
I think it's labeled as Studio City.
Okay. And we're at the Kallis, not to be confused with Kallis, the Kallis-Sharlin Residence from 1946, designed by the architect Rudolph Schindler, with some modifications by Joseph van de Kar and another architect whose name shall remain anonymous.
You're not talking about Barbara Bestor?
Well, then there's Barbara Bestor, who did the recent restoration and an amazing job, really. 5-year restoration, renovation.
You said something really thoughtful about her. You said she does what?
Kind of egoless interventions. I mean, she's a renowned fellow of the American Institute of Architects and widely published and, you know, famous architect of our generation. And yet she's able to come into a historic home like this and do kind of a light imprint. It doesn't, you don't walk in and, oh, this is a Barbara Bestor project. It's like, no, this is a Schindler project that has Barbara Bestor's delicate hand with finishes and materials, and I really respect that.
She does do things for me that's really interesting. She did it at John Lautner's, what was it?
The long lost Lautner. Yeah, I'd really like to talk with her about her work here because it's super sensitive. And so the grape steak makes me think about Schindler and the quote that we've been throwing around a lot that is attributed to Julie Taylor, the architectural and design-oriented publicist, who was talking with Julius Schulman and asking him, why did you choose Raphael Soriano to design your home when you had access to Schindler and Neutra and all the greats? And part of the quote is that if you chose Schindler, you didn't know what you were going to get. And I really feel this here, that it's like a butterfly roof and 4 fireplaces that look sort of like country farmhouse from Europe. You've got the grape steak, which is, I mean, it to me reads Polynesian. It's like South, you know, Seas, World War II kind of tiki almost.
Yeah, it is a little different. I don't think I've ever seen it on any other project, especially you know, used as a design element the way that Schindler did here.
Yeah, so completely playful. He just didn't care. He would just do whatever he thought, and he was experimental. It's not international style, obviously, and you really see that playful artistic spirit that Schindler embodied, you know.
This is a perfect opportunity. I want this to be, or we want this to be, a collaboration. So if you guys have questions or comments, please send them our way.
I feel like this house was designed from the inside out. Schindler described himself as the space architect because he was designing space. He wasn't designing floor plans and elevations and sections. He was designing 3-dimensionally.
Yeah, I don't feel like this was a set of drawings. I feel like there was a sketch. And then as they were building it, he likely was like, let's do this, let's do that, I don't know how they did it. I wish I were here when they were building it, but I almost feel like there's some indication that you had to have the overall structural components in place, and then he would just play with it.
Yeah, he was a real hands-on, site-oriented architect. He spent time on the site, and I feel like you really experienced that in the views, these focused views out to the San Fernando Valley mountains, and kind of follows the topography of the canyon up in here. Very site sensitive.
What would you say is your favorite space here? Like if you had to pick a space to sit in for an hour?
I mean, I love the modern primitivism, you know, those big fireplaces. I think that the fireplace that was originally on the outside of the studio, which was later joined, you know, the house was separate from the studio with an outdoor area, and they were joined by Joseph van de Kar, I believe. I think that space, that indoor-outdoor fireplace is really magical with that view and the materials. In the living room now, that used to be a courtyard. That was an exterior courtyard.
Well, that's true, because if you look at Kings Road, that's what he was doing, right? The indoor-outdoor chimney fireplace. Yeah.
Well, what do you say? Should we check it out inside?
Let's go inside.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to have you orient us in the direction of what was possibly we're naming that exterior space that's now interior.
Yeah, my understanding is that this is the original house, relatively small, maybe 1,200 square feet. There was an outdoor terrace with that, what was once an exterior fireplace beyond, a double-sided fireplace on the backside of the art studio.
Sitting here, I'm listening to you, but simultaneously I'm overstimulated with the amount that's going on. You've got the Clerestory windows all around, and then you're gonna have these light coves that are on the interior and exterior throughout the entire house, really. And I really love his light coves. He does it in a lot of his architecture.
Yeah, I agree. They're just kind of hidden behind frosted glass. Seeing all that woodwork, this striated decking that forms the ceiling and roof, my understanding is this was all painted, and the current owners spent 5 years with Barbara Bestor stripping everything down. And you can tell this was not sandblasted. This was, somebody was in here with palm sanders and toothbrushes and kind of laboriously stripping all the paint off of all the woodwork.
Are you saying that this was painted over at one point?
Yeah, this was all painted.
Oh, really?
From what I understand.
Wow.
And so they saved all this woodwork. And I was thinking about the details. It's sort of a post and beam structure with the exposed decking, the plywood walls, and then there's that little shard of a clerestory window that looks out at the treetops. But then I couldn't tell. I thought that was an interior clerestory into the second bedroom up on this floor, but it's actually a mirror reflecting the view. So there's all this three-dimensional space play going on.
In addition to that, in terms of 3 dimensions, you've got, constant compression and release here, right? Right behind you is compression, and then you go here, and then you can witness the butterfly roof from where we're standing. But everywhere throughout the entire home, really, to some degree, is some version of expansion and contraction.
Yeah, you really feel it in that entry, which is barely 7 feet tall, I think. So you come in through the entry and you pop into this expansive space with the views. We're looking out at Universal City and the mountains beyond. Now I'm looking into the kitchen, and that's all Barbara Bestor's hand. There's some original cabinetry, then there's new cabinetry with Schindler pulls that have been recreated. It's a new quartz countertop, some new appliances and some old. She did that in the bathrooms as well. If I were more articulate, I would be able to tell you those are American Standard fixtures, which I think they are, which is a nod to 1946. And yet there are new European fixtures interspersed, and it's just a good mix of old and new.
Yeah.
So the things that I like about this bathroom are this new mahogany tub. I mean, I feel like I would never leave this bathroom if I had that tub. The tile is kind of a nod to the arts and crafts movement, in my opinion, the way there's a mixture of small and large squares and rectangles, and the way they're kind of interwoven in the shower, and yet they're distinguished from the area behind the tub. I love that huge soap niche that runs the full length of the tub, and then there's a big niche in the shower that is just a resting place to wash your feet and enjoy the sky and sort of treehouse feel of this house through the clerestory windows. But that's all Barbara Bestor.
You know what I'm loving? That shower. Tell me that's not a nod to the fireplace we were just talking about with that indentation.
Actually, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I wonder if that is some sort of nod. One thing I want to point out is as you walk through, Brian, you see this like sort of V-shaped structure here. It feels like you're outside. I mean, it feels like there's no barrier between us and the exterior. So you're probably right. This was exterior at some point because it's got that vibe.
Yeah, that was the house. This was the studio. This was the courtyard. But what an interesting choice to do those V-shaped pairs of columns. Then beyond, outside, you have light fixtures that are bouncing light up onto this ceiling.
And it's happening on both sides too. Those are those light coves that I think are just so thoughtful.
And then there's this slight pitch of the roof that allows your eye to go up above the ridge line of the mountains and to see the sky.
What about this indentation in this fireplace? Did you catch that?
Yeah.
This little, what would you call this, trapezoidal?
I know, that is kind of a trapezoid.
But if you look at everything that's happening, there's this corner here, and then this juts out a little bit. It's all like basically sculptural. And so how would you pour this in place? Right? I mean, you're in the construction world. Any thoughts on how you would even create this?
I'm wondering if this was a renovation by Schindler, because he did these big, I want to call it an inglenook, although that's not the right word. Somebody tell us what the right word is. This was a huge opening, maybe like in the Van Decker house. It's almost like a walk-in fireplace, which is difficult to get to draw properly. And so they may have had to come back in and install another panel to keep the opening at a more manageable size for the draw, so that you didn't get smoke coming back into the living space. And then I love the way it's raised up so that it sort of floats up to eye level when you're at the dining room table or in other parts of the house. It's raised up so you see the fire, which I just love. Yep. Oh, hey, let me point out one thing. These are new floors, and to use that kind of a wooden custom-made floor grate is just such a wonderful detail, because it becomes kind of seamless with the rest of the hardwood, where in my budget, it would have been like a Home Depot little metal grate you slap on the top, and that's, so that's a really thoughtful detail.
So this was not a bedroom.
No, this was Mischa Kallis's art studio originally. And she sold the home to Kallis-Sharlin in 1960. And they hired the architect Joseph Vandekar to enclose the courtyard. And then Leroy Miller, who's an architect I don't know, converted the studio into the primary bedroom. And then, of course, Barbara Bestor did these kinds of interventions. I believe this is a new cabinet. I think those are probably original built-ins. This all feels like it was an original composition. New glass there, obviously, and a new bathroom finishes.
This is that eagleless work you were talking about, because this cabinetry looks like it was built originally. It's clearly new. Yeah. But then the windows are double pane, so we know that those aren't original. Yeah. But they've also matched the lighting, very similarly the way that Schindler had it originally in the original structure.
Yeah, and I love that about her work, Barbara's work, that it's hard to tell what's old and what's new, but it doesn't scream at you that, like, look at me, I'm a talented architect, I'm Barbara Bestor, here's my work. It's like, is it original or no? So super sensitive.
Yeah.
So this is the piece de resistance out here, this pool. I mean, this is $1.5 million pool in my guesstimation. I mean, we're on a hillside in the Hollywood Hills, backside of the Hollywood Hills. This is an expensive pool, beautiful acid etched concrete finish, integral coping, and pool cover, spa, and then board formed concrete signature, Barbara Bestor move, reminds me of the long lost Lautner. The Schindler, another completely different elevation from where we started, all out here on this pool deck, sitting by the fire pit. I love it.
Mm-hmm. You've got the podocarpus that's acting as an enclosure / hedge. And then there's probably like 4 caissons down below, but I don't know where they go to because we're on the hillside. How far down did they have to go?
I was guessing there are more than 4. I was guessing like 12.
Oh, really?
And I was going to say they're 80 feet deep. I mean, they're not insubstantial. I would imagine bedrock's a ways down. And so, hey, this may surprise you all in our viewing audience, but Mark and I actually sell real estate. We're realtors. We call ourselves architecture brokers, and we help people buy and sell homes like this. This one is listed for sale at $6,995,000. by Cooper Mount and Hannah Ginsberg at Carrollwood Estates. And it is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a little over 3,500 square feet. And we want to represent you on the buy side. We're experts at negotiation and certainly architecture, but the thing that we love second most about our work is the deal making and putting, matchmaking a buyer, a steward to take over where these thoughtful owners are leaving off. And so we'd love to represent you in the purchase.
You said that so well that I've got nothing to add. But then that's the kind of things that you and I bring to the table as we research and have this historical knowledge. This is our second time previewing this property. We love it, we're here again. And that's what we bring to the table when we sit down with you and you are interested in purchasing this. These are the kinds of things that we bring to the table.
All right, is that enough of a call to action for fans? Hey, you know what? Let's talk just again briefly. Thank you to these owners. They spent, and to Barbara Bestor, they spent 5 years, a labor of love, restoring this house with artistic license, bringing it into the new millennium, and then registering it as a historic landmark. So kudos to them. Thank you for this gift to the city, and really excited to learn who the next steward's going to be.